My name is Salki Bosanian. I'm a member of the Church Education Committee. I would like to present to you our multifaceted and very talented guest speaker, Attorney Garo Ghazarian, who will discuss the Armenian Bar Association's defense of Armenian rights. The Armenian Bar Association, founded in 1989, is currently chaired by Garo Ghazarian, and my note says I have to say Esquire, but I don't want to say Esquire because he's not. He's a full-fledged knight. During the past 33 years, the association has been involved in a host of matters with the constant goal of advancing the interests of the Armenian people in both Armenia and the diaspora. Chairman Ghazarian will provide an overview of the association's structure, its operating committees, and all its activities, with a special emphasis on activities of the past 30 months. He will also set forth the anticipated activities of the next 30 months, leading up to the centennial of the Armenian genocide, commemoration, and beyond. Mr. Ghazarian is a commissioner in Glendale and serves as the vice chairman of the city's Civil Service Commission. He is the dean of People's College of Law in Los Angeles, where the past 18 years he has taught criminal law. He also is the principal litigator of a law firm based in Encino, California, which is devoted exclusively to the field of criminal defense. He is a member of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, board member of Mexican-American Bar Association, and board member of Armenian Center for National and International Studies. On numerous occasions, Mr. Ghazarian has appeared as a legal commentator on CNN Headline News, CNN Larry King Live, Fox TV LA, and Al Jazeera English TV News. So now we invite Mr. Ghazarian to address the aforementioned issues.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank the Crescenta Valley Committee, the Education Committee, the Prelacy for bestowing what I consider a true honor upon the Armenian Bar Association, and by extension upon me, to come and address you this afternoon, because from this very podium, I have seen the likes of Vehapar from Antilles, I have seen the likes of Harut Sasunyan, I have seen the likes of the U.S. Ambassador last week, and many others who are perhaps, in fact, for sure, for certain, much more worthy to stand here and share their thoughts and views than perhaps I individually. But I, as a representative and the current chairman of the Armenian Bar Association, I believe humbly that the Armenian Bar Association has its true place in the Armenian community, in the Armenian nation, and due to that, and due to the recognition of the committee, I stand here before you this afternoon, very proud to share with you the activities of the association, past, present, and future. I would be remiss in saying anything about the activities of the Armenian Bar Association without sharing with you portions of a letter that I got my hands on, which is dated July 16, 1989. That is the month and the year that the Armenian Bar Association was created. And the letter is written and signed by a young Armenian attorney, born in the United States, raised in the United States, by the name of Rafi Trikorovanesyan. In his letter on July 16, 1989, the thereafter First Foreign Minister of Armenia, the current leader of a political party and a past member of parliament, but then only a 29-year-old, wrote the following, addressing it to each and every Armenian lawyer whose address he could get his hands on, he said the following: "Dear colleague, we are pleased to announce the formation of the Armenian Bar Association. Without doubt, this is an organization whose time has come. The Armenian world is indeed in a state of flux, and the challenges facing it are growing daily. The continued denial of the genocide, the movement for mountainous Karabakh, the Great December earthquake, and the increasing immigration of Armenians to the West all raise important questions of national identity and civic responsibility." July 16, 1989, ladies and gentlemen. Those words, to a large extent, with some minor adjustments, I would say, are still very loud, and they ring very true in my ears, and I'm sure the ears of many. The letter continued: "As Armenians, we have a special obligation to take an interest in the issues that concern our community. As lawyers, we have a special opportunity to address its burgeoning legal needs." The letter continued in some relevant portions: "We have lacked in the past a single national organization that brings together lawyers of Armenian heritage in common purpose to pursue social and educational objectives, to pool resources and talents from coast to coast, to create a network of lawyers as a means to promote professional contact and cooperation, to coordinate the activities of Armenian attorneys, and in the process, to serve the Armenian community." The Armenian Bar Association's calling is just that. It seeks to connect lawyers with different backgrounds and varying degrees of expertise and interests. It promises to provide a forum for social interaction, professional growth, and most importantly, community service. The association is open to all Armenian lawyers, whether they are Armenian by blood or in spirit, and to any other interested individuals in the field of law. The organization will have a number of standing committees. Among the committees are the Pro Bono Committee, the Committee on Continuing Legal Education, the Armenian Rights Watch Committee, and the editorial board of the association newsletter. And then he concluded his letter with a paragraph that resonates with me. First time I read it, and every day that I put on my shoes and I take a step out of my house. "Years ago, the survivors of the genocide, having found haven in the United States and throughout the world, would from time to time bemoan the fact that there were virtually no lawyers in their families and communities to address the legal side of Armenian affairs. If only there were some Armenian attorneys, they would say, Armenian interests the world over would be well protected. The survivor generation is nearly gone, but their prophecy must not remain unfulfilled. There are today thousands of Armenian lawyers who have the opportunity to give of their time and talents, their knowledge and resources to make good on our commitment to our profession and to our roots. Every time I read that letter, and I read it often, I get goosebumps, because though it is written by a 20-some-year-old in 1989, and I recall when I was 29 years old, I don't think that I had those thoughts and motivations at the time. But today, over the age of 50, almost 52, I have embraced those thoughts, I have embraced those feelings for quite some time now, and I'm pleased to say that so has the Armenian Bar Association. Today, that prophecy, that reality, is the same reality, and I call it unity of purpose. From the call to action, to the call for engagement, to the need for self-accountability, to holding those entrusted with sacred tasks of preservation, perseverance, to progress, and yes, dare we say, to perfection. We all are the same. We all are the same in the urgency of now. We are the same as we were in 1989. We are the same as we were in 1991 with the independence of the Republic of Armenia. The same in 1994. The same in 2008. And we're going to be the same in 2013, 2015, and throughout the 21st century. So, when the Armenian Bar Association looks at the landscape, whether it's the post-election violence in 2008 or pre-election deception that we observed in 2012, the glaring deficiencies which remain and beckon the Armenian Bar to action, to activism, to self-accountability, and to holding accountable all, from here to Armenia, and everywhere in between, wherever any Armenian communities exist. I really do believe in the saying by Dr. Seuss. It's my favorite saying. Be who you are and say what you feel. Because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. So, it is not lost on me when I, from time to time, am asked questions that allow me, or rather force me to keep in mind the words of Dr. Seuss. Questions such as, what has Armenian Bar done lately? What will the Armenian Bar do? Why did the Armenian Bar do that? Why doesn't the Armenian Bar do this, that, or the other thing? Those are all good questions. But today, as I stand before you, representing the Armenian Bar Association, I can say that I have much to be proud of for the accomplishments of the Armenian Bar. But that's not to say that there is so much more to be done by the Armenian Bar Association. And no doubt, while we go forward, I will be hearing same or similar questions along the way. And I will embrace those questions and those who pose them, because those who pose questions call us to action, to rethink our acts, rethink our steps, and perhaps better learn how to approach each and every issue. Now, rather than reciting a series of acts and undertakings that are already committed to the Armenian Bar Association's history, I want to clarify that recounting some of these efforts or opining about some of the turn of events that the Armenian Bar has had a role in does not in any way diminish the efforts of many, many Armenian organizations, collectives, and many, many Armenian individuals who have utilized all individual efforts. Some of you are here in the audience. It only serves to empower us, it serves to educate us, and it serves to motivate us to join those organizations and those individuals in a collective unity of purpose. No one can disagree with me that there are many Armenian-loving people and many Armenia-caring people in our midst here and throughout the communities, whether it is in Beirut, Aleppo, Paris, Marseille, South America, Canada, US, and everywhere in between. And those communities, emboldened and protected and served by the likes of organizations such as the ANC, the ARF, the AGPU, the ARS, the Ramgavar political party, the Hunchak political party, the prelacy, the diocese, all of those entities serve to do, to me, to the Armenian Bar Association, one thing: to preserve our national identity. Our national identity that we are forced to preserve because of the forced extermination, the forced annihilation, the forced marching of our ancestors, all regardless of those who deny the Armenian genocide. Because of the Armenian genocide is why I stand here. Otherwise, I would be standing somewhere else in Western Armenia, as would many of you. That is not lost on us. When people say enough about the Armenian genocide, we say not quite enough about the Armenian genocide. Not yet. Not by a long shot. So, the three areas of concern that I want to address that divert from the genocide but come back to the genocide and everything in between deal with the Armenia front currently, on the ground in the United States, and on the international theater. On the major concerns list that we have on the Armenian Bar's agenda with respect to the Republic of Armenia front, we have about 12 items that cause us concern and drive us to action. First and foremost, being an Armenian Bar Association made up of lawyers and judges and law professors and law students, made up of 17 board members who come from anywhere from Boston, Massachusetts to Philadelphia, to New York, to Toronto, to Montreal, to Detroit, to San Francisco, and a great many of us in Los Angeles. We have to tackle, and we strive to tackle, the rule of law and the utter disregard for rule of law that seems to be pervasive in the Republic of Armenia. And you know, there are many that say to us, if you want to be a supporter of the Republic of Armenia, if you want to be the supporter of the Armenian people in Armenia, you need not criticize. I say, respectfully, I disagree with that sentiment. That would be the same as a parent not telling a child what to do, and that would also be the same as a child not telling a parent what he or she needs. Whether we are the parents of the Republic of Armenia or we are the children of the Republic of Armenia, we have a duty to have open lines of communication. We have a duty to speak frankly, openly, and rather than sweep everything under the rug like we Armenians know how to do best. So with the rule of law, the Armenian Bar Association has done much that is really not known to the Armenians in diaspora, and perhaps even not known to the people in Armenia. What am I talking about? I'm talking about from as far back as the early 90s to now. I'm talking about our repeat appearances at American University of Armenia, at Yerevan State University, at the Chamber of Advocates, made up of 70 plus lawyers in Armenia who are entrusted with the task of defending those accused of crimes and civil rights violations. From the Supreme Court Justices of Armenia, to the Justice Ministry of Armenia, to the members of Parliament and the dialogue that has taken place between us and them, to visiting political prisoners in Armenia, and yes, all the way to visiting our founder when he was engaged in his freedom fast a year plus ago, to ensure that rule of law and civil rights at all times are respected. We are an organization, our Magna Carta is written by Rafi Hovhannisyan, but we are not an organization that belongs to anyone except those who call themselves Armenian lawyers, or Armenian law students, or Armenian judges, or Armenian people. We belong to the Armenian people. I often go places where people tell me, you should have done this, you should have done that, and I say, you know, I think you're a lawyer, aren't you? Yes. Well, why don't you come and join us and help us do those things? After all, who do you think the Armenian Bar Association is? It is you. It is you. So if you do not want to come home, why are you complaining that the home is dusty, dark, cold, or too hot? We need to take personal responsibility rather than wait for others to do that which we think they should be doing. law, comes free and fair elections. In that regard, the Armenian Bar Association has been on the ground as recently as May of 2012 at parliamentary elections. I am not going to give a report on our findings, but our findings gave us plenty of room to be disappointed. We were somewhat encouraged, and international bodies that were there, it's nice, but you know, the villages that we went and the outskirts that we went, we did not see any non-Armenians observing anything. What we saw were glaring irregularities. We addressed it, we spoke about it, and of course, we got some criticism for it, but that's okay. Independent judiciary. The Honorable Prime Minister of Armenia was here, I believe a week ago, last Sunday, and at a luncheon, he spoke somewhat candidly and openly about when they are not paid enough, naturally, they are more susceptible to bribes. The gentleman seated to my right at that luncheon was the Chief of Staff for Foreign Affairs. And I said, what exactly are they paid? And he gave me some number like $300 a month or something of that sort. And I said, well, why don't we make sure they're paid $30,000 a year, $2,500 a month? Well, we don't have the money. Where's the money going to come from? You know, I don't know where the money is going to come from. I'm not an economist. But I can say this. We build roads in Armenia. We do all kinds of good things in Armenia. We in the diaspora support all good things in Armenia. How do we expect Armenia to thrive, to grow, and to come out of the so-called culture of bribery when we do not take care of that very basic element, the judiciary, to be independent, to be not susceptible to influence, to be self-sufficient, and be able to support its members of its family, put food on the table, and not be subject to corruption. We figure out a way to pay them. That's how we do that. There are many other glaring issues that plague our beloved homeland. They range from the LGBT rights that continue to be not adhered to, women's rights and shelters, which we partnered the Armenian Bar Association with the Crescenta Foundation to see to it that it be implemented so that abused women will have a shelter to go to as opposed to an abusive environment which subjects them to harm and, in worst cases, fatalities. To the environmental rights. You know, this concept of environmental rights that is cause for a lot of people to say, well, what's the big deal about environment? It is a true tragedy to go to the beautiful mountains and forests of Armenia and to find out that aside from the fact that they are being invasively encroached upon, they are being done so without adherence to international standards. Now, again, the Honorable Prime Minister last Sunday did have an occasion to have some dialogue with what I will call concerned citizens who were protesting the mining in Tehut and other areas in Armenia. And what I heard in that dialogue was that the government of Armenia was receptive and was actually engaged in dialogue with environmental activists and concerned environmentalists in Armenia. The interesting part about that is that I don't know who those people are, nor did the Honorable Prime Minister mention any names, nor did the young man who seems to be at the forefront, a gentleman by the name of Yelia Nersessian, seem to know what the Prime Minister was talking about. It is back to talking the talk, but not walking the walk, that we are all very good at times. Rights of investors in Armenia. How many times have we heard and talked about people who want to go to Armenia, want to buy a piece of land, a little business, have a home in Armenia, only to be disgruntled, disappointed, have their property taken away, have their business be taken over, and then when we seek answers on behalf of some of these individuals, we find ourselves talking to a brick wall. Military personnel rights, hazing, the tragic homicide of Armenian. All of these acts, at the root of it all, if we go and look at the root of it all, including the most heinous of them all, poverty. Poverty in Armenia, which the Prime Minister was brave enough to say it's at 30%, I believe, at the luncheon. I may have misheard him. Nevertheless, to acknowledge that poverty is an issue in Armenia is refreshing. The numbers, I think, are somewhat skewed, and it's a lot higher because all of us who have been to Armenia, who have gone outside of Yerevan, we see the conditions which people live in, who look like us, sound like us, feel the same feelings that we feel, and they are Armenians just like us. Public corruption, that is at the core of it all. Public corruption, which will take time to cure. I'm told, well, Yerevan is a little Moscow. I don't know, and I don't care, because I've never been to Moscow, and I'm sure it's a pretty place, but it is not the country that my grandparents died dreaming of seeing it liberated, and it is not the country that I would hope that we have our motherland emulate. Underground in the United States, the Armenian Bar Association has been involved and is currently involved in genocide-related litigation. Genocide-related litigation has taken many forms, from curriculum to teach genocide in Massachusetts schools, to the Movsesian case currently, which is in the United States Supreme Court. The Armenian Bar Association, through the efforts of its first chairman, David Balabanyan, and the firm of Bingham McCutcheon in San Francisco, that firm has spent over $1 million in pro bono services to advance the efforts so that the Movsesian case will have a just outcome, a just result, and it will not be falling victim to politics. Defending against anti-Armenian sentiment in the United States. Is there anti-Armenian sentiments in the United States? Well, just read any newspaper when an Armenian is arrested. It is there in bold print. Armenian power, Armenian gangs, a group of Armenians. It's interesting you don't ever read about Italian group of folks or Irish group of individuals committed the following crime or that crime. What does the Armenian Bar do about those things? The Armenian Bar Association engages in dialogue with everyone from Andre Barat Jr., the United States Attorney, the Chief Prosecutor in Los Angeles and the surrounding regions. We invite him to the Phoenicia restaurant in Glendale, and we have a reception so that we can have his ear. Is there anti-Armenian sentiment in Glendale, the most heavily populated Armenian community outside of Armenia? Yes, there is. I'm sad to say, yes, there is. When the Glendale Police Department, knowingly or unknowingly, decides to have a roadblock for checking people for being under the influence of alcohol, and decides that that roadblock is going to be done on April 24, the Armenian Bar Association has a problem with that. That is exactly what happened a couple of years ago, and that is exactly the reason why I was fortunate to be allowed by then Chairman Edwin Minassian, who has been instrumental in taking the Armenian Bar Association in the direction that we are in today, for which we are all grateful. I was fortunate to be allowed to go have an audience with the Chief of Police and his command staff, and we were fortunate in the end to have that roadblock designated to take place on April 24 to be lifted, so that our young ones who drive around on April 24 with the tricolor on their cars do not get stopped in the name of, let's check and see if you're drunk. After all, do you think that the Hispanic community would appreciate it if on Cinco de Mayo, on May 5th, there's a roadblock in East LA? I don't think they would quite appreciate that. Now, when St. Mary's Church on Central Avenue in Glendale is vandalized, and when the Glendale Police Department decides, in its own sole discretion, when it decides in its own sole discretion to make a determination that that vandalism, that act, is not a hate crime, it is not an anti-Armenian crime, it is not an anti-Christian crime, the Armenian Bar Association has a problem with that. That is what happened, and the Armenian Bar Association held a press conference, met with the chief of police, and the remarks that I was fortunate to be allowed to make on behalf of the association were the following. Unless the police department has within its ranks qualified psychiatrists who have evaluated, examined this suspect, unless now the police department is going to be the judge, jury, and the executioner of every offense or alleged offense, I think that matter is best served if it's sent over to the district attorney's office to make the proper evaluation as to what charges to be filed, and then let a court of law decide whether or not the alleged suspect is A, guilty, and if B, guilty, then were there any mitigating circumstances for the crime that he committed. These types of egregious taking for granted properties of Armenians, issues relating to Armenians, are the very small but larger than life matters that the Armenian Bar Association follows on a daily basis, most of which goes unnoticed because it's meant to go unnoticed. It is not meant to be publicized. It is meant to get the job done rather than say, look what we did. Today is the day that I get to say, look what we've been doing. When we have our esteemed foreign minister of Armenia come and speak at the World Affairs Council, and thereafter the World Affairs Council decides to have the Consul General of the government of Azerbaijan speak as a rebuttal, and when people like Harut Sasunian and I, representing the Armenian Bar Association and the young Armenians, go to the World Affairs Council, we go there united. United in purpose, united with an individual, united with a cause, united for the same people, the Armenian people, so that our voices are heard in the face of utter lies uttered by a representative of a government whose president declared that all Armenians are the enemies of Azerbaijan. On the international theater, nothing is more important today to the Armenian Bar Association, and I'm certain to the entire Armenian diaspora, than the Syrian-Armenian crisis. Nothing is more important than that. Yes, with respect to the axe murderer Sakharov, we did write a letter to President Obama, the Armenian Bar Association did. However, with respect to the Syrian-Armenian crisis, the Armenian Bar Association decided to put pen to paper, despite the fact that many suggested that the letter will fall on deaf ears, but we thought it was appropriate, that it was the least we could do at the time when the crisis started affecting the Armenian communities in Syria, to send a letter to the United Nations, to send another letter to the United Nations Human Rights Council, and to send yet a third letter to the Arab League of Nations, urging them, not just in the name of Armenians, but Armenians inclusively, that all minorities and all communities, Christian or otherwise, Armenian or otherwise, ought to be taken into account when assessing how far ought responsible nations of the world allow the crisis to grow. Thereafter, of course, the Armenian community has been united. The political parties, the historical political parties, the individual activists, the Harut Sasunians of the world, although there aren't many of them, have all spoken very loudly about the need to support the Syrian Armenian community 100%, not 10%, 100%. What are we going to do from this point forward? Well, I've asked representatives of 3 major Armenian organizations to take an audience with us in the next week or 2 before the year is up. Though some may think, what does Garo want? It's not what Garo wants, it's what the Armenian Bar Association wants, it's what the Armenian people want. What is the solution to those who are survivors of the Armenian genocide, the first community after 1923, to now undergo the same atrocity in the name of civil war in Syria? Was the civil war in Lebanon not enough? Was the Iranian Revolution not enough? Was the Iraq crisis not enough? Was the crisis in Egypt not enough? Was the crisis in Turkey that existed when the Armenian communities were sent into pogroms or their properties were taxed in the 40s and 50s not enough? Was the Cyprus crisis not enough? The Greek crisis not enough? When is enough enough? I visited Beirut this past summer. I did have the pleasure to meet with many representatives of different organizations, including, fortunately, a Syrian Armenian delegation from Aleppo that had come to my birthplace, Burj Hamid, Lebanon, and I was asked to join that dialogue. And I was amazed at the Armenian resiliency. I was amazed at the Armenian spirit. It is as strong as it was in 1915, 1923, 1940s, 60s, 70s. It is as strong as ever. But even the strongest among us, from time to time, could use a little help. And the Syrian Armenian community could use our help, and the Armenian Bar Association is going to make it its top priority for the foreseeable future to see what we can do in a small way.
Reverend Father and dear friends, good morning.
To take part in that process. Now, when we also last visited Armenia in May, we had occasion to go to Artsakh. We viewed the Independence Parade on May 9th, I believe it was. And we were also equally very encouraged that here was a little piece of land occupied by its true and rightful occupants for centuries, the Armenians of Artsakh, which appeared to us to be thriving, which appeared to us to be committed to its day-to-day affairs, to its destiny. And it's only people like the Armenians of Artsakh that remind us how well and how easy some of us have it on these shores. The Artsakh lands are protected, but threatened at the same time. What about the lands that our ancestors, who marched out of and ended up on the Mediterranean coast of Beirut, Syria, further inland, and further south? What about Western Armenia? What about Turkey-Armenia protocols? I was just told yesterday that the protocols are dead, and that the more we talk about it, the more we give it life. I am not a politician. I am an Armenian. I do have some common sense, as do most people. And when the United States ambassador to Yerevan, Mr. Heffernan, comes to Southern California, when he meets with organizations, one of which organizations is the Armenian Bar Association, and in the first couple of minutes, His Excellency Ambassador Heffernan says how important it is for Armenia to have Turkey-Armenia protocols ratified. That provides the Armenian Bar Association cause for pause. That provides the Armenian Bar Association with a question which was posed a few days thereafter to the Prime Minister of Armenia. What was Ambassador Heffernan alluding to? After all, a superpower as the United States doesn't need to come and tell the Armenian Bar Association or the ANC or any other organization how important it is that Turkey-Armenia protocols be ratified without, I would suspect humbly, and I would be glad to be wrong, without first getting the nod, the wink, and the silent approval of the Republic of Armenia. Because after all, the Republic of Armenia is a signatory to those protocols. And if the protocols are truly dead, why then does not the Supreme Representative of the Republic of Armenia withdraw the signature from those documents? And when Prime Minister, to a question posed to him by a representative of Armenian Bar Association, responds and says that is the Armenian Revolutionary Federation's question, frankly, that causes me to feel confused, puzzled, and perhaps even a bit insulted. Because yes, an organization or a party such as the Armenian Revolutionary Federation is a 122-year-old party. So is a 100-plus-year-old party, the Ramdamar party, so is the Hanchakyan party, and they have kept our community vibrant, protected from the Middle East to other parts of the world. However, to suggest that an issue such as Armenia-Turkey protocols, something that strikes at the core of every person in the diaspora, who has heard stories after stories from his grandmother and grandfather, from his other grandmother, from his great uncles, from other friends' grandparents, to suggest that Armenia-Turkey protocols belongs to one political party, and how dare a non-political party from another professional organization ask that question, to belittle it as though it belongs to Armenia-Turkey, that it belongs as though it doesn't belong to all of us, that causes me to wonder, what have I missed in my 51 plus years as an Armenian boy, as an Armenian man? We have much work to do, but our work, as diverse as it is, and as controversial it may be, whether it is having meetings with a group of environmentalists that people think, oh, they're just a flavor of the day, which I beg to differ, whether it is an organization called Sardarabat Movement representatives, and they come to Southern California and they want to meet with Armenian Bar Association, we will meet with any and all Armenians that want to meet with the Armenian Bar Association, because our mission statement, our Magna Carta, which I read to you at the beginning of my dialogue with you, says that we ought to do that. We ought to engage in community service. And if you are in the community, then we ought to be serving you. And if serving you means to take in a meeting with you, we will take in a meeting with you. We will hear, we will exchange ideas and dialogue. Whether it is supporting a children's center in Armenia by the name of Oran, we will engage. Whether it is supporting the Armenian Center for National and International Studies, which I am a board member of, we will engage. We will engage in all parties that are not political, not driven by any individual agenda except a unity of purpose to advance the interests of Armenia, to advance the interests of the diaspora. And when we talk about Armenia and diaspora, I've often gone and spoken to Armenian young children, and I have talked about our many dialects, the reflections and the references to Barskahai, Beirutahai, Hayastanihai. It's funny, they all end with Hai. And the enemy, at least those who consider us their enemy, whether it's the president of Azerbaijan, whether it's the machinery of current-day Turkish government, they don't really distinguish between us, Armenians. They address the issue as Armenians. When they say there was no Armenian genocide, they are talking about Armenian genocide. Now, there are a series of things that I would like to see take place on behalf of the Armenian Bar Association. First and foremost, we call on the Republic of Armenia today to implement tangible steps towards 2015, the 100-year commemoration of the Armenian genocide. We applaud the efforts that the Republic of Armenia has undertaken in forming a committee in Yerevan. We applaud the efforts of the Consulate General in Glendale, California, for forming a committee of multiple organizations. However, commemoration is not what we are satisfied with or looking for. We are looking for action. We are looking for action in courts of law because disputes are resolved in courts of law. And when we hear that only a sovereign nation can make demands upon another sovereign nation, we accept that representation. What we do not accept as Armenian Bar Association, when a sovereign nation, who we believe rightfully has the ability and the calling and the responsibility to make certain remarks, demands, and expectations, when they don't do that, well, I guess that is when the Armenian Bar Association will seek partners with others in the diaspora to take measurable steps, whether it is in the context of an Armenian diaspora structure, whether it is in the context of a community partnership with many organizations that have been here before the Armenian Bar Association, and I suspect will be here far after the Armenian Bar Association was created. We will take steps in the upcoming months, and we will make a major announcement which will be declaring that which we have been working on, that which we have been contemplating, that which we will keep on the shelf if our representative, if our sovereign representative, Republic of Armenia, does the task that we believe it ought to do. If not, we will do it for the Republic of Armenia in the name of the diaspora and the Armenian Bar Association. I call on all organizations and all hardworking Armenian individuals to join us and to let us join you. Unified in purpose, together, and together, let us go forward. Thank you very much. At this time, if anybody did not understand English very well, and I don't want to insult anyone's ability of speaking or not speaking English, I'm happy to summarize my remarks in Armenian. In fact, I will only say the following so that those in the audience know that I do speak Armenian and I speak it in all of its dialects. Այ ժողովուրդի իսկական ծառաներն են հայ իրավապանական միության անդամները։ Իսկական ծառաները ոչ բժշկական ասպարեզի մեջ, ոչ ջարդարագիտական ասպարեզի մեջ, ոչ այլ քաղաքական ասպարեզի մեջ, այլ իրավապանական ասպարեզի մեջ։ Իրավապան հարը կնշանակե իրավունքներու փանախոս։ Իրավունքներու փանախոսը կգոչվի փաստաբան, բայց մենք ոչ մեկ բան չունենք փաստելու հանդեպ հայոց ցեղասպանության, հանդեպ Արցախի ինքնակառավարման իրավունքներու, հանդեպ որևէ մեկ հայ անհատի կամ յուրաքանչյուր հայու իրավունքներու, որը պետք է համահավասար լինի ըլլա ամերիկացի կպատակի բարակային, ըլլա Թուրքիո մեջ բնակող հայի բարակային, ըլլա Սուրիո մեջ բնակող հայի բարակային։ Իրավունքներու բանախոսները ընդհանրապես ժողովրդի կողմից ընդրված մարդիկ են, իրենք կգոչվին ազգային ժողովի անդամներ, իրենք կգոչվին ներկայացուցիչներ, ինչպես Լիբանանի մեջ գոյություն ունի 7 հատ, որոնց նախագահի հետ հանդիպում ունեցանք անցյալ համար, սակայն այդ իրավապանները, որ ազգային ժողովի ներկայացուցիչներ են, երկրի ներկայացուցիչներ են, հաճախ կարգահայտվին political քաղաքական, քաղաքացիական եւ այլն պատճառներով մենք սահմանափակված ենք արտահայտվելու, որովհետեւ դուք պոլիտիկ չեք հասկանալ, մենք այսպես չենք կրնա ասել, մենք կհարկենք այդ արտահայտությունները, սակայն իբր իրավաբաններ, իբր փաստաբաններ, մենք այդ սահմանափակումներուն ենթակա չենք իբր միություն, եւ մեր նպատակն է, եւ մեր հերակիցն է, որ հանդեպ բոլոր հարցերու հայապահմանման, հայկական հարցերու, հայկական թադի եւ հայկական ապակայի առաջիկա ամիսներուն հայ-իրավաբանական միությունը պիտի մեծ ոչ թե աղմուկով, մեծ ձայնով պիտի արտահայտվի։ Շնորհակալ եմ։